Hello everyone, welcome back to Lore of Granblue Fantasy. It's been quite a while, hasn't it? I gotta admit, I kinda gave up on Granblue, but now that Relink seems to be finally be releasing this year, I really wanted to get back to making lore videos. I got really burned out on the gacha game, but I don't know, I just really fell in love with the world of Granblue and its characters, so I just keep coming back to it. It's legit one of my favorite franchises ever. So in today's video, we're gonna keep pushing through the main story. Now, I know the first like 20-ish chapters are your pretty standard fantasy adventure, but trust me, it's gonna get crazy. Especially when we dive into the event storylines, like the Providence storyline and the Society events. And even later arcs of the main story, it's gonna get really, really interesting. This video is gonna cover chapter 5 through 8, the Valtz Duchy arc. So if you guys recall in the last episode, the crew defeated the primal beast Tiamat and welcomed Rakam into the crew as their helmsman. Then they received a letter calling them onto the Valtz Duchy to search for the missing Archduke. And with that said, let's jump into the first chapter, Island of Lanterns. The crew arrives at the Valtz Duchy, an island filled with factories and smoke, as well as a lot of draft people, in search of the missing Archduke Tsaka the Great, which supposedly was kidnapped by the Empire. Sierra Carte gives the crew secret instructions to meet a man named Christoph, who might have some information. But they must be careful, because Sierra feels like they are being watched, and someone indeed seems to be following them, a magic user. They eventually find Christoph, but unfortunately, there aren't many clues to the Archduke's whereabouts. But he gives them a letter detailing the movements of the Archduke until he disappeared, and the crew heads to the locations mentioned. They search around for clues, but they barely find anything, only weird rumors like the Duke and the Empire teaming up to build a doomsday device, and other conspiracy theories. They notice that the person who is following them is being attacked by goblins. It's a small mage girl. They help her out, but when they defeat the goblins, she runs off. They ask Sierra to help them find the mage girl and return to their investigation. But, with no new clues, they return once more to Sierra, but this time, she has a letter for them. It's a ransom note. The mage girl was kidnapped, and the crew must meet with their captors at high noon. The note was posted on a board in Sierra's shop, so there's no chance of tracing it. So with no other options, they decide to rescue the girl. They arrive at the location to find Drang. Despite the crew saving Drang and Sturm's life on Port Breeze, they're still working for the Empire, and are also trying to find the Archduke's whereabouts, and they question the crew in exchange for the girl. A machine soldier ambushes everyone. Lydia senses that it's being controlled by someone, but no one knows who it might be. Drang and Sturm run away, leaving the girl behind, while the crew is dealing with the machine soldier, and after dealing with it, they come to her rescue. She's passed out, and she's calling out to someone she calls Master. And so ends the first chapter in the Valtz Duchy arc, and we've got a mystery on our hands. The most prominent person in the Isle, the Archduke, is missing, and both crew and Empire are searching for him. All the while, this mysterious girl is following the crew. She could hold the key to solving this mystery. And with that said, let's move on to the second chapter, The Veil is Lifted. The crew is discussing their next step at the Knick-Knack Shack when Sierra announces that the girl is awake. Everyone introduces themselves to her, and timidly, she introduces herself as well. The girl's name is Io, and she used to be the Archduke's apprentice. She noticed some guys asking around for him, so she decided to follow them. Io also has a clue to the whereabouts of the Archduke. Drang let slip out the name of a specific island in the Valtz Duchy, so the crew heads towards this island. This specific island is rumored to have a bunch of secret factories built by the Empire, a good hiding spot for our kidnapped Duke. The crew disembarks, being cautious of their surroundings. This is no holiday spot, so the Empire is probably onto them. While searching around the island, they end up talking about the Archduke himself. Io describes him as a sloppy but incredibly kind man. She recalls when they met, Io was sad about something and the Archduke cheered her up with a simple magic trick that fascinated Io. After dealing with some monsters, they find a secret entrance to some mines. Delving deeper into the mines, they find a research lab, a place the Archduke might have been helping the Empire on. A figure appears behind the crew and calls Catalina by name. It's a knight, one of the 7 luminary knights in fact, and the top advisor of the Earth Empire, the Black Knight. Io asks for the Duke's whereabouts, but the Black Knight is searching for him themselves. They say the Duke proposed to help them with their research, but then disappeared, and he's trying to create something terrifying. To do so, he needs Lydia and also the small girl besides her, whom she calls Doll. The Black Knight also recounts the last time they met with the Duke. He seemed obsessed with something, his eyes bloodshot and full of energy. He was researching primal crystal technology, and for it he will target Lydia just like he targeted the Black Knight's Doll. Suddenly, mechanical guards, supposedly controlled by the Duke, surround the crew, ready for battle. The Black Knight bids them farewell, running away, and the crew also starts their escape. Io seems distraught. Why would her master create those machines and do all these awful things? She sensed magic in the mechanical guards, confirming her suspicions that they were created by the Duke. The crew reaches the entrance, but Io turns back and rushes to the mechanical guards, shouting for her master, in hopes he will hear her, forcing the crew to fight the machines. After dealing with the machines, the crew decides to go back to town, Lydia noticing that the machines reacted to Io's words earlier. And so another chapter ends. We finally have a few leads on the Archduke, and something tells us that he might not be a good guy after all, as much as that disappoints Io. We also got to see the Black Knight and their doll. If you guys recall, they appeared in the last episode, and they seem to be Drang and Sturm's boss. It's gonna be a while until we see who is behind the mask, but the reveal will be very interesting, I can guarantee you. With that said, let's see what happens in the next chapter, What Slumbers Below. Lydia cheers Io up. She seems to be back to her feisty self, motivated to keep searching for a master and to try to bring some sense back into him. Zero brings back some parts of the machine guards. She found out that it's made of material that's ultra resistant to heat. This means that it was probably made somewhere really hot, like the lava lake beyond the desert in the island. So they rush towards the lake. They stop along the way to sort their clues. First, the machine monsters. They were definitely made by the Archduke. Second, supposedly he teamed up with the Empire to do something huge and terrible, but somewhere along the way he ended up breaking their pact and now is after Lydia, but they still can't reach a conclusion. They finally reach the lava biome, and Io finds a cave that leads them underground. The crew is surprised she found the spot so quickly, and that's because the Archduke brought her there once in the past. They descend to the underground and the heat is taking its toll. Like something deep down in the cave is producing insane amounts of heat. Something buried from way back in the past, as V suggests. Io wonders if it may also be the source of her master's madness. Deeper down, they hear sounds of battle. Drang and Sturm are struggling against a pack of monsters. Io attacks Drang, but he and Sturm run away, leaving the crew to deal with the monsters. With the monsters defeated, they inch closer to the end of the cave. Lydia notices it's getting slightly colder. The cave has various machines to release the heat outside while keeping the workplace more bearable, as Drang, who was there all along, explains. Drang and the crew make a temporary ceasefire until the matters with the Duke are resolved. Catalina confirms the crew's suspicion. Since Drang and Sturm are here, there must be something big hidden here. Drang tells the crew that something from the war was hidden here a long time ago, and if it's something from the war, it was probably made by the Astrals. After this, Drang and Sturm leave once again, and the crew chases them through the corridors, reaching an entrance, one step closer to the Archduke. That's chapter 7! We are getting close to the Archduke, and now we know there's something hidden here deep within the island. Something from the war and probably made by Astrals. I think you guys maybe know what it is. Now let's go on to the final chapter in this video, chapter 8, the Iron Titan. They face more and more machine guards, but this only confirms to them that they are reaching closer and closer to the Archduke. They catch up to Drang, who is being harassed by machines, and they find bones from a giraffe. Io is shocked. Could these bones be from her master? Of course not. They are too old and weathered to be from him. These bones, they're probably from someone from the times of the war, when the Astrals forced the giraffes into slavery in the mines because they were strong and dexterous. Lydia senses something big, but it's not quite a primal beast. She can hear its voice. They finally reach the end. An enormous iron giant stands before them, and then the Archduke finally shows his face, standing before the giant. Io begs him to come home. The Archduke ignores her. He talks about the bones they saw, the bones of enslaved giraffes from long ago. This facility was used to make primal beasts, the weapons of the war. And the giraffe, who worked there, ended up learning how to make something similar. They stole the technology and knowledge of the Astrals and made something almost like them. The Iron Giant is a remnant of those times, a symbol of giraffe rebellion against the Astrals. His name is Colossus, a primal beast forged in steel to deliver the giraffe people from bondage. The Archduke took upon himself to finish what they started, and wake Colossus up at any cost. Archduke Zaka tells the crew to not stand in this way. The crew retreats momentarily. This obviously comes as a shock to Io, who viewed Zaka as someone completely different. Lydia, on the other hand, tells Io she can finally hear it, the crying from the giant. The giant cries for being woken for a horrible purpose, and deep down, the Duke is also crying. Lydia asks Io to help them save the Archduke. Together, they may bring him back to his senses. Io heads back once more to confront the Duke. She tells the Duke to wake up, that the war is over and the Astrals are gone. The Archduke still clings onto his comrade's dream, and Io says she will wake him up and release him from his trauma. And so the crew battles the Duke, and after a tough battle, they defeat him. The Archduke is in disbelief. Was his dream gone? No. The dreams carried by his ancestors are still with him, and with a shout, Colossus wakes up. The Iron Giant finally came to life, forced to be awake against his wishes. Seeing no other option, the crew must defeat Colossus to finally wake the Archduke from his delusions. From a distance, the Black Knight and Drang watch, commenting on how Lydia has become stronger, but still not strong enough for some sort of plan. After much pain, they finally crush the Iron Giant, shattering the Duke's dream. A piece of debris falls out and heads straight to the Duke. Io calls out to him, and Colossus, in his final breath, uses the rest of his strength to protect Zaka from certain death. The Black Knight, watching from a distance, prepares to leave. They say they'll overlook Zaka's transgressions against the Empire and look forward to meeting Gran and Lydia once again, and so they escape once again before the crew can get them. The crew apprehends Zaka. Due to his injuries, he sleeps for 3 whole days straight, Io always watching over him. He wakes up, smiling, just like nothing had happened. He apologizes deeply to everyone. Io cries. She's sad to see her master manipulated by the Empire into doing terrible things. Catalina, having served the Empire in the past, explains that the Empire rules with an iron fist throughout the Skydome, and does not know the word humane. It does whatever it must to achieve their goals. This gives Io motivation to leave Valtz and travel with the crew. She wants to end the Empire's terrible rule, and the crew welcomes her aboard. Before they leave, Zaka gives them a piece of the sky map. He woke up with it in his hand, a final gift from Colossus. He also gives them a clue for their next step. It seems the Black Knight and their doll are trying to do something in the August Isles. And with that, the crew heads to the Summer Isles of August. And with that, the Valtz Duchy arc is over. We got a new team member, Io, the young mage, and the lead telling them to head to August, a place famous for their beaches and summer vibes. August is also a place that's a setting for a lot of events, as many of you may know. As for the story so far, I think early Grand Blue suffers from "we gotta do a whole storyline in 4 chapters" syndrome. I wish they fleshed out the relationship between Draff and Astrals, and also the Draff and the Empire. We really didn't get a real reason as to why Tzaka was doing what he was doing. I mean, sure, he was trying to finish what his enslaved ancestors were trying to do, but for what purpose? What was the end goal? I guess the story suggests the Empire manipulated him into waking Colossus for their own nefarious purposes, and Tzaka went somewhat mad and tried to do it himself for different purposes. But like I said, I wish they fleshed it out more, because I didn't really feel like he was doing something super terrible like they wanted to portray. But still, let's be honest, the overall plot is still miles ahead of most gacha games and it's only going to get better, trust me. And with that said, I hope you liked this video. Give me suggestions on what I should do next. I'll probably do more main story, but there's a bunch of new characters and events, and maybe you guys want me to explain them. And with that said, see you guys later in the lore of Grand Blue Fantasy.